I've got a green light. It says we're live. I don't know. We'll see how long that lasts. The internet is always an unpredictable little devil out here in the middle of the jungle. It's Sunday morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought this would be another good day as long as the internet gods allow for us to go over. A lot of you guys have been asking questions about, well, I think the main question a lot of people are asking is how to use stop losses. For all the private Bear Den members that have gotten the 2-day early release, just be patient. For everyone else that hasn't seen it yet, we will be emailing for the private Den members PDF out. It looks fantastic. The thesis this month went great as well. For those of you that watched Seller, Matic, and Fetch all jump up with between 30 to 60% gains right off the bottoms. That was great to see. But again, I think one of the highlighting ideas that we shared in there was that if you're not running with the stop loss, you're playing a very, very limited game. And then what I mean by that is, if you're not in this system with the stop, okay, so first off, let's make a clear assertion in the difference between, say, an investment and a trading thesis. So in an investment, let's say you're going to buy Bitcoin and you're just going to hold it for the next 5 years. That's a good idea. This is where the hodl mentality came from. This is great. I love trading. I think charting and analysis and technicals and fundamental research is super engaging, and you can fit it in. It doesn't have to be all the time. So I'll make a clear example here of a few things, but one of the reasons I wanted to go over this stuff is because if you do not have a stop loss in place and you're in the trading, not investing area, then you're going to inevitably lose. It's just a matter of time until the trade goes the wrong way, and then you are no longer in the position that you thought you'd be in, and you have to either wait it out until the tides turn in your direction, or maybe it never recovers. And the never recovering idea brings us back to something I've said a few times before, and it's one of the ideas I want to iterate over and over again, is that you can take 1,000 small paper tiny cuts, right? And it's not going to kill you. But if you let an artery bleed and bleed out like that, you might actually destroy your trading portfolio or your profile in general. And also that you're going to, most importantly, or I guess most noticeably, you're going to wreck your emotional state. And having a rather clear and calm emotional state while making these ideas is the hardest thing ever. We as humans, these silly monkey bodies that we have, and as beautiful as they are not designed to think logically in emotional situations. I know this as a matter of fact because if it was not the case, I'm positive there are things that I would have not wrecked in my life. This emotional world that we live in is actually there as a buffer, as far as I can tell, to help us stop from doing dumb things, in the real stark realization that we live in a world filled with randomness. And inside of all of that randomness, we're trying to make sense of what is happening. And because it's impossible to do, we quickly divert ourselves back to emotional thinking instead of logical. That way we can actually comprehend what's going on. The emotional world is like the imagination, and anyways, it's a whole different side topic. But the point of this is, a stop loss is extremely important. If you consider yourself a trader in learning or whatever, at least teaching yourself some of the game plays, the stop loss is the first thing you should use. So a bunch of you guys had asked me how to do that. I'm not going to show you right now, but what I'm going to tell you to do is how to use it, and then we're going to look at Bitcoin's technical analysis. And again, remembering that there's a stark contrast in between what I consider my investments and my trading. Trading is something that I do because I enjoy doing it. All things in life you should do because you enjoy doing it, not just because they make you money. The reason I bought Bitcoin is because I enjoyed the philosophical concept. I enjoy the rather stoic-like behaviors that take place in distributed systems at large. So it wasn't just an investment, oh, I'm going to make more money potentially. It was actually an affirmation of a much deeper, I guess, psychological process that I think everyone is going through. And with that in mind, it makes a lot more of this, like significantly more easy to create a tangible effect, not just in wealth in the short term, but also the wealth that you have in your life in general. So I just want to make sure everything is going smoothly. The stream is going smoothly. Thank you guys. Give us those thumbs up from the channel. And I see a few of your guys' questions here already. I do see a question about Algorand, and I will take a look at that. Algorand, actually, I want to start with the stop loss. So with the stop loss, if you're using Binance, it's called a stop market limit, I believe is what they typed there. The best way to do it, instead of going to look up videos, just go buy maybe like 100 Matic. It's worth like 10 cents or something in Satoshis, and then hit stop market sell just a few pips or points below where it is right now, and watch if it triggers, and then you'll know that you did it right. The best way to learn this stuff is always by kind of trying to touch the fire. I can tell you the fire's hot. I can show you the fire's hot. I can even show you how to start the fire. But until you get in there and you focus on trying to get burned. So what I suggest people do is generally go in with a very small amount and then try to make that mistake. Because that's what you're trying to do when you're learning something, is curb yourself from making a mistake that's going to cost you money. So with this system, you can actually go in and you can make a mistake that might only cost you 10 cents, but it's worth thousands of dollars in learning process, especially to put your fingers on the trigger. So more importantly, what I say, instead of just doing a video, but we will do a video about stop losses specifically, is to actually just go out and try to make that mistake with just very little money on the table, like micro Satoshis, you know what I mean? Like I think Matic is what, 100 Satoshis right now. So if you bought 100 of them, you're looking at 1,000 Satoshis. It's nothing. It's pennies. And it's the perfect opportunity to be able to put that risk in to really learn the process of, hey, the fire's hot. Even when sending Bitcoin, I go through, I'm double, triple checking every time, because I know the consequences of getting this wrong can be costly. So I just want to keep that at the forefront for everyone, and remind you guys that one of the best ways to go through the process here is actually to make sure that you know what would happen if you made a mistake. So instead of allowing someone just to tell you what to do and that being your benefit, your guiding light, let the mistakes be your guiding light. Just try to make them with nothing on the table. That way you know what you're doing. Anyways, that was the first bout I wanted to share. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not looking entirely healthy right now, although we did find this, well, and sorry, by healthy, and everyone please note that when we're here, we're talking about trading on a much more short-term basis. I'm not thinking about the fundamentals that I believe Bitcoin is going to $1.5 million. I'm looking at the day-to-day. I'm looking at what's going to happen between here and August, this kind of thing. So this trend line here that we see that I've drawn through is actually a very, very strong upwards trend line. As you can see, we've broke below it and up it and below it and up it. Now, to break below it here, an easy swing to 9,300 or 9,300, and again, even the possibility of 5,400 to lower around 3,000 was still on the table. Now, we have clearly stayed well above the Ichimoku cloud. This is a very bullish indicator, hence we've been above the clouds. That's always a good thing in whatever metaphor you choose to take it. The cloud itself is actually down here around $8,000. So if we were to come hit the cloud, that would be a nice healthy indicator. Now, I don't want to make too much conjecture about the overall price of Bitcoin in the short term, mostly because I'm only interested in what happens on the much shorter term basis. So for instance, again, for those of you that are private Bear Den members, you know exactly where I'm about to go with this. I was only interested in these moments here when Bitcoin started to fall and Bitcoin started to consolidate, because I don't care what Bitcoin is at in terms of price. I'm only interested in understanding the subtleties and the nuances of trading in a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week market, because it is brand new, and that in itself to understand is I won't be able to explain it in any short form of how important that is, because this might be how these new markets react for the next decade to come. Being ahead of the curve to know how to play in the waves is going to be super, super valuable. So what I'm leading into here is that every time Bitcoin turns around, I am then making trades outside of the ecosystem. Now we have this whole new budding ecosystem, and I myself am not a Bitcoin maximalist. The reason being is because I like to stay true to the concept and the philosophy of distributed. Just that one word alone. Now, anyone who's a Bitcoin maximalist and screams and cries for only Bitcoin being the answer, I think is ignoring what distributed as a philosophy means, or even decentralized as a philosophy means. These ideas themselves require competition. That's what will make them stronger and better. So every step along the way, I think that the entire crypto and blockchain ecosystem is becoming a part of Bitcoin itself. That these will become the rails to speak to one another, and that you want as many different forms of safety and security as possible, because if you rely on just one, you have this same centralized bullshit that everyone else has a problem with already. So let's use Bitcoin and look at the downside from this example again, because I want to explain some of the reasons why I'm playing in the background in this particular way. Bitcoin itself, if it were to be the only one that was out there, it's the same fucking garbage that we always have, even if we're hitting a perfect deflationary model. The reason being is because consumers do not have a choice. I've made this sentiment before, but if I like Ray-Bans and the other guy likes Dragon, you need the opportunity to have the choice in the ecosystem. They do not fit the philosophical outline of what the white paper was talking about if you do not include that. So all the Bitcoin maximalists out there, please get your heads out of your asses. You're making complete foolery of yourselves. Although I do think it is very likely that Bitcoin could be worth trillions of dollars and could be the top out part of the umbrella for the financial ecosystem, it requires all of the other little currencies below, like Digibyte potentially, because this is about empowering the economic freedom of the entire planet. And you cannot just do it with one. You need the opportunity for, say, this small municipality over here to have their own ecosystem, their own financial infrastructure, and for them to own all of it. That is extremely important. People have to be able to make that choice. So for me, what I like about the philosophy here is really recognizing the changes between the two. So when Bitcoin took this nice gap down, we took a few small positions. Let's not give size relevance, because I guess everyone's life probably views these ideas differently. We took positions with Matic, One, and Seller. Now, not all at the same time. I actually day traded each of these for probably about 20% gains, even though there was around 50. I didn't want to be in there for all of that rush, so I didn't actually stay in there for all of that rush. Now, this is important to me for many reasons, but one of them being is, again, I love trading. Trading is a much more minutia-driven concept in the world of trying to understand the fundamentals of what I was just speaking about, is that you need competition in this space, and then therefore we know that there's going to be some. Now look, Google and Amazon are not competition for each other necessarily speaking. They focused on a completely different consumer basis point, and from there they grew to massive monolithic companies from this space alone. And that's what I think we're viewing from the ecosystem of the blockchain space, is what other value can be provided in this technical world that solves problems for the consumer. People want to get caught up in their own investments far too much, and they miss out on why it's valuable to the consumer. One of the biggest parts that I invested in Bitcoin for was the consumer is the person that has it the worst in terms of financial infrastructure. So let's say in Africa, this is a prime example. Bitcoin is already too expensive and out of the hands of the many to end up in Africa properly. Right? We're going to need competitive sources that allow cheaper on-ramps, because their money over there has been completely destroyed, and there's no easy on-ramp for them in the mining space yet. Now, solving these problems, I think we are just around the corner for doing, and we'll lead into this later as we go, but I do not believe that Bitcoin is going to be the only one, so I'm actually very bullish on the ecosystem as at large as well. So because of that, I also am interested in the speculative behavior, which is what trading is much more a fundamental understanding about. So let's use the example. Well, I don't want to give too much of the private bear dens information away because it's extremely valuable and you guys are all paying for it. So I'll tell you what, if you want to sign up for the private bear den newsletter and you want to hear more about this particular thesis without me going into the trades that I made and the percentages that were there on the table, because some of those were 50 to 60% trades in the last 48 hours. You can sign up by going to arcanebear.com/club. Please note, this is only for the people that are interested in actually learning and educating themselves to be able to have the trading resources and tools to execute what they need to, when they need to keep control of their financial investment thesis as they deem fit. Anyone who comes in here looking for signals, those are the people I know that are going to lose, because signals are a direct relationship between the people in this market that think, oh, how do I make money quickly? Well, I don't know how to make money quickly, but I can tell you how to go broke fast. And that's by trying to make money quickly. And a lot of the people that are looking for these so-called signals think, oh, I can just follow this signal in and out with very little education and very little understanding. You will lose. You will inevitably always lose. Even if you hit 1 or 2 gains with a signal group, which is possible. Look, there's a lot of great, you can just throw darts at this game and be close. So there's a lot of a lot of crappy technical analysis and fundamentals that go out there that are right, because randomness can be right way more than you fucking think. It's mind-boggling to understand how often you can see people that are successful and they are only there because they're a total fool. They have done nothing right to have gotten there. It's just the randomness of the universe. And there's all these people that will hold up their PhDs and be like, but no, look, see? No, there's a good chunk of you that are only here strictly by randomness. I'm going to say myself as well. I always try to combat this by being like, okay, how much of what I've done to be here today with any form of stability happened just by fucking sheer accident? And it's a lot more than you'd suspect. A significantly higher probability that you are where you are right now, strictly from randomness. Anyways, the point of this is, I don't think signal calls are good. If you want to actually go down the proper path, I think it's a community as well as the connection to the education and a little bit of accountability, which is why we do charge for the newsletter. If you're not paying a certain amount of money every month, you're not being held accountable by other people. We could actually probably raise the price and have a better infrastructure, but I would rather have more people that are quality that show up every month for the next 5 years than just a few people that show up for a few months here and there, because I believe it's a lot easier to make a long-term investment every month and build from there. Anyways, the point of this is, if you want to know more about the valuable thesis that we have that's been earning a lot of the Bear family in the background, you can sign up for that. I'm not going to give it away on the show, but let's, for an example, take a look at some of the other crazy nonsense that's been going on. Like we saw TNT, for instance. I'm going to open up this random token. Between the 20th and again, so here, between the 20th and the 29th today, look at these spikes. And this is just off Bitcoin's weakness. 60% in 2 days and 20 hours. This TNT token has been doing stuff like this over and over again. I would even almost speculate that the reason its name is TNT is because it just has explosive growth. And look how there's multiple times where if you accumulated near these bottom areas, you saw big price spikes. And not only that, we're about to retest its previous all-time highs, which unto itself is crazy. So what I'm saying is that in the background, in this space, we know that there is explosive amounts of money starting to come in. And if you know how to go hunting, you can be profitable, but only if you know how to play. If you're looking for signals, you're generally going to fail because you don't even know what type of indicators you're looking at and using. So I wanted to use this as a live trade day, and I thought about doing it, but a lot of the tokens that we had been trading are actually at previous high areas. So for instance, we had jumped into Matic, we caught a ride for it yesterday, and then we exited. I did re-enter here at 204 and then got stopped out at 199. Only for it to go up a little further after. But look, this is the whole point of being a good trader, is you need to learn how to take a stop and realize that that is as good as profit, because it means you can play again. So one of you guys had asked about Algorand. I see people, you guys are listing ideas about Litecoin, BNB, whether they're good for trading or not. Again, let's look at Litecoin, for example, right? Litecoin only had a 10% gain, so I guess 21% versus Bitcoin in the last 1 day. So that's actually fairly great for Litecoin. This is a very safe bet too. And now that we're breaking up here on the 1 hour, I would suspect that we could see it bounce all the way up to the 12,000 mark. But again, the important part here is to actually watch it onto Bitcoin. So we're going to ignore the rest of the other fundamental thesis, which I think is probably one of the most valuable parts to understand. And we're going to look at what a lot of people are interested in, is simply just Bitcoin's price at the moment. Now, we're about to test the 1 hour 314 simple moving average down here as well. as well as this major trend line that we've had since almost the $3,400 area. This is important for a few reasons, because once we break below this, we could see a big swing back down into the $8,000 or $9,000 area. If that were to be the case, all hands on deck, because then we know that there's also the possibility of 3,000 to 4,000. This could have been the most beautiful bull trap that we've ever seen. It's still on the table that we retrace. I mean, there's so many weakening signals in the ecosystem. The NVT, the MFI, the RSI are all showing fairly bearish signals. So it's not always easy to tell what the market's going to do, because generally when you start to we're going like I'm saying, we're very easily going to $100,000 in Bitcoin in my mind, right? And I don't know how long it takes to get there. It doesn't matter. That's what's going to happen. That's my fundamental investment. The technicals here, again, I'm just trying to understand the minutia so that I can acquire more Bitcoin in that process. And not just that, I think even more valuably is understanding how this ecosystem works, because if you can do that, there are gameplays here for decades to come. That is decades. That's a lot of education value inside of a decade. So the point of what I'm trying to do here is make sure that we have a very clear definition between the fundamental investment, which is going to take us to $100,000 to $1 million, and then understanding the technical minutia of how we get there, so that we can make sure we're capitalizing on it during the whole process, right? So for instance, when Bitcoin was up at $20,000, this is when you want to be taking money out and investing it into other businesses or diversifying into other parts of your portfolio. Maybe you had $1 million last year and you dropped all the way back down to, let's say, I don't know, $100,000 from $1 million, almost a 90% drop. At that high, had you taken it out and invested into real estate or other assets like equity in businesses, you would have a much better time withstanding the storm, because Bitcoin is new, right? So we've had wealth transfers every 10 years if you know how to play the game. Bitcoin is not new to the concept of wealth generation. Generating wealth has been around for the entire human species. So how do you do that? There are many great thinkers in this space, people like Naval or Tim Ferriss, who are talking about how we manage systems to build businesses to grow. Because again, there's a lot of people here that probably look like they're doing very successfully that have gotten here strictly by randomness, and we can probably safely assume that within the next 3 to 5 years, they probably will not be around. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not in that group, or if you are, you get out and you leave quickly enough so that you don't get burned during the process. Because this is, I think, the hardest part for people to understand, is we are emotional beings, and thinking logically in the face of this, we just made $1 million and blah, 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 it's gonna go to the moon and fucking Lambos and everyone's rich, financial evolution, we're going to... This is noise. All the news that we hear, the commentators, I'm gonna even call myself to some degree noise. What you have to be able to do is take in all that noise and sift through and grab the signal. Our brain is actually very good at doing this. There's something called, look, this is going to be a long, obscure, random rant where we don't do too much charting in the minutia, but I think what's important is to understand the depth of what takes place in an investment, to really understand how far you can go, because this is about generating wealth. It's about generating economic freedom, which is mostly responsibility to others. So the clear line that I want to get across is that this isn't just about Bitcoin. This is about other avenues of your life where, and I know it for myself, where I become emotional when I should just be thinking clearly and logically. And we are engraved as these silly kind of monkey, lizard whatevers to think this way, because this is what the physical body does. So what we try to do is come up with tricks to offset that. So there's a signal, right? And then there's noise around it, like me talking and the commentators and all the other YouTubers. Let's say we're all fucking noise as a comparison. But the signal is what the market is actually trying to tell us, right? That's the clearly defined single. Our brain is great at trying to solve complex information like this as long as we know the tricks that are necessary to do so. I'll give an example. We can do something that's called pick up a binaural beat. I love doing this. I've been studying music my whole life, and you can actually increase the level of meditative response in any human being by putting a frequency of 432 hertz in this ear and 430, like say 8 hertz in this ear. And what our brain does is actually it starts to hear this helicopter-like frequency that's the 4 hertz differentiation between these two ideas. And we actually start to pick up what's called a binaural beat. This is the signal between those two, what would be called noise in signal generation. They're actually the offset. They're the moments when these particular things line up. It's the important reason to understand fundamentals and technicals as very different, almost opposing ideas that in the middle sit together very, very importantly. Because every step of the way, every investor, every trader is going to have a different pain threshold to where how beat up can you get before you don't get back up anymore, because you always want to make sure you get back up. As long as you're getting back up and you've got another day to fight, you will be successful inevitably. You will find the luck by being relentless. That's a huge indicator of success, is can you just keep coming back and being in the game. Most people get kicked out of the game all the time. It's very difficult. So what I'm trying to explain here is that there's a deeply philosophical aspect to the reason why I'm so entertained by this stuff. And it's not, it has mostly to do with the stoic ideas that I hear that resonate out of people like Nassim Taleb or Naval or Tim Ferriss. It's that the entire function of so much of what we're trying to do is share this storyboard of the ability to generate wealth from providing value to other people, right? And that's not just about physical wealth, like, oh, I made this much money. It's actually about the legacy and your reputation as well. There's a lot of people that think I've screwed them over. Do you know how many times you have to screw me over before you think I've screwed you over? A few, probably 2 or 3. I'm pretty nice. I'm way nicer than I should be to people that have screwed me once or twice. I've learned my lesson by getting burned, and now I no longer let it happen. The other thing is to understand, like, okay, so for instance, again, we have to remember that everyone views this type of stuff differently. I have friends that go out and buy like a $2,000 custom piece of clothing because they're super into clothing and that's their thing. That's where they want to decide to spend that money on their wealth and happiness. And then they'll cut the fucking pant legs off of this new clothing that they just bought because they want it to be like, it's even more their own. Now, I'm not going to tell them not to do this stuff, because whatever you need to do to follow your own happiness, you know better than anyone. So first off, your pain thresholds and your happiness thresholds, because they're very different for everyone. I would never spend that much money on clothing. Even my own Arcane Bear t-shirts cost me like 15 bucks, and that's probably 5 times more expensive than it should be. So let's make it very clear. Everyone needs to understand their own pain and their own happiness thresholds for these games, because it's extremely important. So I've gone off on a little rant and tangent. Thank you guys for joining us. The reason why I think this stuff is so important is because if you're in here in the long term and say Bitcoin goes to $100,000 and then comes back down to 30, if you don't take, and say you've made $1 million, that you when you're at Bitcoin being at 100,000. So you bought Bitcoin and it went to 100K each, and you've got 10 of them. Now you've got $1 million, but it drops back down to 30. I can guarantee you that being able to take those profits out, diversify into your life. Maybe you're going to pay for your mother's has a sick bill right now, and or maybe your family's got you're going to cover and take care of all of their back-end costs for their house that they bought, so they no longer have debt. Maybe you're just going to do something nice for your family when you have more money before the prices of certain assets come down. The point of having all of these things is that so you can increase your happiness. Doing things for your family probably makes you happy. Now, not everyone loves their family to the degree where they're going to pay off their mortgage or something, but what I'm saying is wealth is a tool to create more happiness. The ability to get more wealth means you need to know what your pain thresholds are for either A, people screwing you over, or B, the markets going in the direction that you didn't want. So stop losses you need with people as well, right? So now I have my stop loss with people. You get 1.5 tries with me and then I'm done. Maybe 1.5 is too much, but I like to give people the barrier of the doubt for the fact that, look, this is a big, hugely spiritual, conscious story as far as I can tell, where we're all just part of this one big consciousness trying to perceive itself, and that I try to see as often as possible myself and other people, which also often means that you have to have that stop loss. You have to have a stop loss with people, right? You're like, okay, I'll invest into this friendship and this idea, but as soon as you don't go that direction with me once, game over. You cut the losers fast and you let the winners ride, right? So as much as these ideas are definitely in the trading world, they do apply to other areas in life. And I think when you can start to conceptualize some of these concepts, oh yes, well, what else do you do with a concept? You conceptualize it? Really internalize the concept, not conceptualize. You want to internalize, another one of those eyes words, what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And everyone is different. You know, let's use a business as an example now instead of just a portfolio. Let's say your goal is to get to a business that makes $1 million a year, but you're currently making $500,000. You've got like 3 or 4 employees, and you're making 100,000 out of that 500,000 in profit and revenue, and you want to get to see if you can make 250,000, right? But now you get to $1 million and you're making 250,000, but you're working 6 times harder and longer, only to make that extra a little bit more, and you realize that it's not worth it to you. Everyone has a completely different work-life balance. There's a lot of the times when I ask myself, is it worth risking doing this extra workload because I love sitting outside, I love playing music, I love spending my time in the garden? Do I want to risk that just to be able to have more money? Because the money isn't my tool of appreciation of wealth. I go and I sit outside and I am immersed in the most wealthy experience humankind has ever been offered. We live in that moment always now, and this is what all the spiritual gurus are trying to teach, is that you live in like the most incomprehensible basket of wealth, and it's right at all of your senses tips, right? So here's the point. Everyone has their own like wealth acquisition thesis that needs to be written for themselves. I suggest everyone take out the book that they've got for writing stuff down, and you start to take notes on where you would like to be in the next 2 to 5 years, how you would like to get there, and then every step of the way ask yourself if that's really what you want. Because if you start to go there and you become more successful than gives you time to sit in the garden, it's your fault. Money is not worth risking that extra time. In my mind, I would rather spend it with the plants, because when you're 70 years old, 80, 90, when I'm 90 years old and potentially on my deathbed, I'm not going to think about how much money I have. I'm going to think about can I get more money? How can I trade money for the time that I have? So yes, this is trading. It's only trading for the people that are conscious and developed enough to already have generally a medium to large size portfolio. For the average moon boy kid, 88, no, you won't see this as trading because you do not understand yet trading time and money for one another. The better you get at understanding the fact that you're always trading your time for something else, because time is your most valuable asset, this whole thesis makes a lot more sense. So yes, 88 Moon, this is about trading, but this is about trading for people that already have wealth and know that they are wealthy as individuals already. So for a lot of the people that are looking for financial freedom from just Bitcoin, you're probably going to fail in the long term. Even if you made a bunch of money, you'll probably fail in the long term because you won't necessarily know how to adopt and adapt to it. Most people that win the lottery lose all that money very quickly because they had no tool sets or skills to keep that in place. Now, if you become an entrepreneur and you start spending and investing and building and growing communities and networks, easy to turn the money into a long-standing relationship with many ideas. So yes, the point of this is actually, this is all trading. It's just Look, I do know that the demographic of this channel is between the ages of 29 and 65 because everyone that understands what I'm saying has already developed their higher levels of logical thinking. If you're in this room right now, or you're watching this video later on and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell is this guy saying? It's probably because you're a little immature and don't understand yet the higher levels of logical thinking. Not your fault. We actually have clear scientific evidence that says anyone below the ages of 27 probably has not finished yet developing their frontal cortex, and therefore does not also have these higher levels of critical thinking yet formed. It also probably takes you around 3 to 5 years to form that layer of your frontal cortex, which is up to the ages of 32. So what I'm trying to do is explain a thesis that is probably for the older generation of people that already have critical thinking, in hopes that the younger generation who does not yet have access to this information in their own brains can maybe add to their basket and become a little bit better at critical thinking before their time. So yes, this is about trading your time for money, or I guess you could say time for energy, because that's what this all is. It's all about a big balance between what do you want to do with life. I love sitting outside playing the guitar with Annie. Like, if you're like, hey, would you rather just sit outside on any beach and play guitar, or be on a yacht? I'd be like, no, I'll take the guitar and the beautiful woman singing, please, because it's so much more valuable to my spirit. I don't want to trade these two. Okay, so let's take a look at one more quick essence here. We've gone over this thesis a few times before, but I just want to make it very clear. Live trading is mostly about the patience for looking at what ideas. Most of the 88 Moon says most of the people here are not wealthy yet. No, well, no, that's not true. Most of the people that are here, if they're not financially wealthy, they're wealthy. They just don't realize it, and that's probably one of the first barriers that they need to get out of their way to actually becoming wealthy. If you think you're not wealthy, then you will not be wealthy. As soon as you learn to realize that you are surrounded by one of the wealthiest experience anyone has ever existed in, you will become significantly more successful. So let's take a look at this here as well. So is it good to buy LC? I'm assuming you're asking about Litecoin at this time. I don't ever hodl positions like Litecoin. I've never hodled Litecoin, and I don't think it's a good idea. This is just my opinion, but I think Litecoin makes a great leverage trade against Bitcoin, but I think in the long term, hodling is a bad idea. There's a few reasons for it, and anyone that's been on the channel and following for a long time already knows why I feel this way, but I'll show you here now. First off, here's some of the notes here. We actually did fall into the entry target thesis. There we go. So for everyone in the private bear den that had already seen this information, we swiped right in through this entry level and picked back up. So it's nice to see. I know everyone snagged some profits on Litecoin probably twice in the last month or two. So none of us hodl these positions. Every time Litecoin goes up into a peak, I'm out, because I want more Bitcoin. I do not want more Litecoin. Hopefully that helps answer that question. Whether it's out of my actual entry range now. So as you can see, we've had this recorded here for months. The entry level area here we've exited out of, so I would not be looking at entries. I would be looking at potential exits here on the breakdown through the hourly. We could look at the top of the cloud here at around 13.2 for a retracement, again, depending on what Bitcoin does. So a big part of the question here is, okay, well, what's Bitcoin going to do? We get to watch that on the minutia. I don't try to make predictions of what it's going to do. I try to see what it's going to do as it's doing it. So the other day while we were trading, we saw this spike up to the 0.786 and the 618. We saw massive FOMO, and this almost always happens. Right? So we actually exited Bitcoin and we went into both Matic and Seller at that point and made around 25%. Now we could have made 60%, but again, I like risk-adjusted ideas and happiness. If I've made a profit of 10%, I exit the trade and I go for a beach walk. I don't think to myself, oh, I could have made an extra 20 or 30% and waste my time sitting in front of the screen. I aim at very specific entries and exits. If I might lose 1.5%, okay, so let's use Litecoin as an example here on the daily. And I'm gonna use it to had I entered, oh no, where'd my candles go? Okay, I'm gonna have to just upload. I'm gonna have to reload my chart here, ladies and gentlemen. Bring me my candles back. Oh no. Oh no, we've moved the candles up into the top somehow. I'm not even sure how I did that, to tell you the truth. That feels really random. Edit, reset chart. I don't want to reset the chart. Maybe reset chart. That didn't do it. Okay. Does anyone know how I accidentally put my candles into my eagle's nest? I've never done that before. That's wild. I didn't even know you could do that. Why would one want to do that? That's what I would like to know. Litecoin cannot move without Bitcoin's help. No, I disagree with that statement. I don't think Litecoin can move without Bitcoin's help. I don't believe Litecoin is moving independently. I don't give a shit what Litecoin's price is in... Oh yeah, nice, drag and drop. Thank you, Caldeer. Who would have thought? That was great. Okay, thank you for helping me solve that. I've actually never done that. I didn't realize you could move indicators onto other parts of the chart before. Okay. So let's use Litecoin as an example. So what I do is I use both charts here. I open up Litecoin and then I open up Bitcoin because I do not care what price Litecoin is at in US dollars. Anyone who's trading in US dollars and charting these in US dollars is ultimately going to fail. The fact that they haven't realized that yet is probably due to some of the randomness of that they think that they know what they're doing. I try to remember that I don't know what I'm doing. So from there, it gives me a much clearer definition because now I have to go through a lot of failures. This is what you should be doing. Not because I think you should be doing it, because this is the only logical answer if you look at it from a very sensible standpoint. So, right here, look, see on the minutia time, let's put 45 minutes on Litecoin as well. And then 45 minutes on Bitcoin too. So here we go. We've got both of these charts open right now. So at the very top of Bitcoin's drop down, we started to see that Litecoin moved up slowly, very slowly. Once Bitcoin actually started to retrace over the last 24 hours here, and we saw downward pressure, we saw more interest in Litecoin's price because we saw weakening in Bitcoin. I would have likely entered out of the break of the EMA here if I was going to enter right where our nice VPR line is here. And I would have already been looking for an exit. I would have made my first exit probably at the top of the Bear Claw EMA. And if I was looking at a re-entry, I would have entered at the bottom of the flag because look at all of this upwards resistance against it on the Bear Claw as well. Beautiful, beautiful technical chart. And there's a bunch of places you can find that this happened. I will actually use Matic as the perfect example. Matic on the 45, or was it the hour? Yeah, Matic on the hour had been consolidating right around the top of the EMA wave here. Again, beautiful sentiment for why we'd want to be in a trade for the short term. So with Litecoin here on the 1 hour, there's actually more room for upside around to 12,500. So this nice little flag could actually push us for up another 10%. Again, only barring off the fact that Bitcoin is showing weakness right now, so other investors don't mind using that soon. Snake Eyes says Litecoin halving soon and Litecoin will move higher. Again, that is a total irrelevant. It's totally irrelevant. Litecoin's halving. If Bitcoin decides to move a lot higher, faster than Litecoin, Litecoin will show no difference. It does not make a difference whether it halvens or not. People don't care about that. There's a lot more important information in this ecosystem other than just the halvings, and it's about perception of value. People need to understand nothing has value outside of the lines of privilege. Only when you have the privilege to think about value does it exist. If you are in survival mode, none of these things have the value that we think they have. I promise you that. So we cannot use conjectures like, oh, the halvening. That's a privilege to even be able to say something like that. My point here is that no, I do not try to ride the boat of the masses aside from the trend itself. I steer clear and I get the head out. I try to be out before the masses start to exit, so it's clearly out of the way. If Litecoin can't move without Bitcoin, how did it move up 500%? Dominic, the fact that you just said that clearly displays the idea that you're not listening. So Dominic says, if Litecoin can't move up without Bitcoin, how did it move up 500% with Bitcoin even moving 200%? It didn't. It very, very clearly didn't, if you're listening to what I'm saying. So let's go to the daily chart here for Litecoin, and let's show Bitcoin as well. on the daily for Bitcoin too. So I can prove to you why what you've said makes no sense, Dominic. Okay, so I don't care what Litecoin's price is at in US dollar terms. I only care in Bitcoin terms, because if it's not in Bitcoin terms, it doesn't make any sense to pay attention to it. Okay, so here we are, both at the bottom of Bitcoin and Litecoin's price, right? But if you look right now, Bitcoin is up massively, and Litecoin is almost right down to the bottom of where we were in the beginning of March 2019. So there is Litecoin is barely up 40% versus Bitcoin's price in the last since March, right? Barely up 90%. Although if you had been smart and taken a trade up at around 17,000, like at the rest of the bear family had exited Litecoin up here, then you would be up against Bitcoin's price. But no, there's no 500% move here in Litecoin. There's a 40% move above Bitcoin's price, but that's it in the last 215 days. And even then, I would have rather been in Bitcoin than Litecoin, because it's just a much smarter bet. Although, again, this is all about the purpose of speculation. So please understand that the important part here for me is I want more Bitcoin. Litecoin is actually down in its Bitcoin terms at least 34%, and just 2 days ago 50% down off its highs. So that's a huge move downwards for Litecoin. Again, remember, this is why we would never hodl Litecoin, and why I would have never accumulated. And also, I do not chart in US dollars, so Litecoin has not moved up to 500%. It's moved up 40% against Bitcoin. Again, I believe everyone in this ecosystem will understand that very, very soon. Those people that are still interested in the US dollar terms don't have enough US dollars to live the rest of their life, and they're generally newbie market traders. They're newbie at everything. So congratulations, you're new and you think you know what you're doing. Just like every other fucking person who has not yet totally failed. So I wish you the best. I hope you don't fail to the point where you can't come back and play. So please play safe. Let's see, take a look at a few more of your guys' questions. Having is factored into the present price once people understand that the price will drop. I do think so as well. Having is, for the most part, is already priced in. Although there's a lot of people that don't know that that happens, I'm sure. But we could probably go through and find out pretty easily. Now we would have to do a voting system, right? Like how many people know that Litecoin has a halvening? And put that up on Twitter. Maybe we'll even do that today. So for those of you that want, go to our Twitter channel. We're going to post a poll that says, how many of you know that Litecoin has a halvening? Yes or no? And from there, we'll be able to decide how much the market has already priced in that particular idea. Okay, and again, everyone that's saying Litecoin in dollar prices, I don't care. I do not care about Litecoin in dollar prices whatsoever. I'm not using a Litecoin trade to get more dollars. I'm using a Litecoin trade to get more Bitcoin. Please understand that in this channel, I do not fucking care. I do not care. It's a bad decision to care what it is in US dollar terms, and you will generally lose out in the long term because you're not paying attention to the very big realization that I think over the next few years, we will no longer say, what is the US dollar price of this thing? We will say, how many Satoshis did that cost? That's my fundamental analysis of this idea here. And that is what will keep me moving forward. And I believe what will keep me well established in this space is that I understand this is the financial revolution. It takes years, and I've already been here for almost a decade, investing, trading, winning, losing, and I'm still here. You could say that that's purely randomness. Sure, I haven't made it out of the 2-year decade mark, which we're like, wow, okay, you've been doing this for 2 decades. You definitely it's not just random. So I think again, what's important here is to understand why I have this particular thesis overall. So Dominic says you think things will be priced in stats. I think everything in this market is priced out in Satoshis right now. All the big boys are not buying Litecoin OTC. Most likely they're buying Bitcoin and then shifting into Litecoin because they have people. If they don't have people as smart as me, then they don't have any How can you not be at least as smart as me? I'm a fucking crazy person in the middle of the jungle. You have to have at least one or two people at the like at the higher levels of $100 million company that are going, hey guys, look at this. It's one of the. It just doesn't make sense because there's only two counter arguments here. Okay, so let's go back to Bitcoin and make a little bit of a conjecture for where we think we're at. So for those of you that do not follow us, please go to TradingView. If you are not signed up for TradingView, please sign up for TradingView. You can find us by going up to this top little part here, typing in people, and then typing in Arcane Bear. Oh, not on a ticker, we're not a token, we're people. And then we'll show up here. And then from there, once you're at our profile page, you can see some of the ideas that we've been looking at. So here's the Bitcoin chart. We're either going to break down below 10,400. This is what I wrote. 10,009. I actually should say 10,400. Or we're going to continue upwards. So I wrote this out a few days ago, and it looks like we're about to complete the C wave. So this is we're like at a super important part right now, because if we can continue downwards and break below the 314 moving average, at $10,340, $10,350, we're gonna come down and test 9 grand. If we make a big one wave now above our previous B wave, then we're gonna continue the stair step upwards. So this is a very, very important part in my mind to keep an eye. That's why we did this chart for free. This is the type of stuff that we do in the private bear den for everyone. If you want to sign up for the arcanebear.com/club, you can sign up for the Arcane Bear private updates, which we do quite a bit more frequently in the Telegram channel as well as the bulletin board. And we're actually hiring another analyst to help keep up with all the notes that we do on this side as well. When things move quickly, it's impossible to keep up with. Otherwise, I'm in and out of a trade sometimes in less than 24 hours, and most people just don't get it. So we try to steer away from that and just use a little more long-term projections. So again, this is what we think is super imperative, is where we are at right now. If we break below the 786 line right now and we're definitely coming down to test 9,300. If we bounce off this area and go up to the one wave higher than our previous B wave, we could be on our way to 20,000. And then again, stair step fractals out from there and onwards. So let's take a question. Oh, is Top the new guy? I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get Top to help doing the writings, but maybe what we can do is we might have an intermediate between Top doing analysis and writing. We're not sure yet. Top does great stuff for pattern charting, but we don't want to ask too much of our community members. So I'm actually looking at hiring someone that can just help update the notes and stuff like that. Maybe they actually just intermediate what Top is doing, because Top has years and years of trading experience in the background as well. So we're going to be taking a look at that. I think it just entirely depends on where everyone's comfortable, and if we can fill the gaps for traders like Top to actually write out the differentiation between the two, because a big part of the problem is getting it onto the website and getting it posted, or going onto TradingView and making this assertion. So back to our Bitcoin chart here. We'll close this one. Okay, I'll take a few more of your guys' questions, and then we'll leave the show for the end of the day. So it's just questions from here on out. Nice, thank you guys for all the kind words. Cool. I'm actually just gonna leave it at that. I see you guys asking about like ETC, so I'll make that the last question for now. I do not hold and have never touched ETC, just as a front end, and I never plan to do it. In terms of where it's at in Bitcoin's price right now, I probably would be getting out, especially if, again, it's all hugely dependent on what Bitcoin does next, because as I just showed, Bitcoin's at a very important part. Yeah, this is a very, very downward looking trend, which is downward is great because it means there's room for upside potentially, but I would not, there's no fundamentals in this trade for me to take place. There's a possibility of a 50% gain, but there's a possibility for 100% loss as well. So I would never take this trade, personally speaking. That's all I can say from this chart. I mean, well, here, let's for fun, let's be a little nicer, and because it is the last question, let's take a look at the RSI just for amusement's sake. Okay. Yeah, here too, even what's difficult is you actually don't have bullish divergence yet on the RSI either. You actually have a lower RSI for the lower price. That's not a great sign. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. Hopefully that's helpful. Is BNB a hodl? No, I would never hodl BNB unless you're using it to trade on Binance, which is a different story because it saves you 25% of your trading fees. So only if you're a trader would then I do that, because BNB is useless in my opinion, although it's actually done pretty good, but it's only useful for the traders. Outside of that, I don't see the real use cases, although they have been trying to show me more with like their Binance chain, and I just can't keep up with what it is their MVP is. And because of that, like, I know what Red Bull does, right? Like, even though Red Bull has like music recording studios and they get people to jump from space, I know what the fuck Red Bull's MVP is, and Binance has been doing a shitty job of keeping their MVP up to date. The fact that they did a bunch of other things before they updated their UI UX development that had nothing to do with their core MVP, really confusing for me, and I don't like when companies do that. There will likely be other companies that take them out of their position if they do not focus on who brought them here, and it's all of the traders and investors and speculators. Anyways, thank you guys all for joining us today. Smash that thumbs up if you enjoy this content. If you're new to the Bear family, please hit subscribe. Leave your thoughts, your comments. If you're a brave bear and you're invested in being here for the next 5 years, join our private monthly newsletter. It is $30 a month. Actually, we'll tell you what, just for the next 24 hours, if you guys go in and type Bear Den 33, you will get a 30% discount, whether it's a monthly or a yearly membership. So that'll go from $30 down to $20. Again, so just, I guess we'll do it as a 24-hour run. So for any of you that were thinking about signing up, there's a discount code, all one word, Bear Den 33. I'll hop in and do that right now. Thank you all for joining us. I will leave you one more time with the bear outro. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.